Matt Lasser joining us now, as he's wont to do after commits say, yes, I do. Although this is a weird one. Matt Lasser covers recruiting for us here at Warchant. First of all, good to see you, buddy. Secondly, should we be excited? Tom, throw up that graphic really quick. I'm not trying to rain on our parade, but as you can see here, it's worth noting that the latest big-name recruit to say yes to Florida State has said yes to a lot of people and then changed his mind, including us previously. Izayia Williams, the young man out of Leesburg, at 6'1", 220 pounds, linebacker that can do some things. Everybody covets the talent. We'll see now. Now, he shut down his recruiting after saying yes this time. That's good to know, but you look at the graphic there. Said yes to Louisville back in November of 23, decommitted in January of 24. Said yes to Syracuse in April of 24, decommitted in August of 24. Said yes to us at Florida State, September of 24, decommitted in November of 24. Committed to the University of Florida, those pigs, in March of 2025. Flipped to Ole Miss in May of 2025, and flipped back to the Garnet and Gold in August as of today in 2025, this morning on a Libations Friday. So we celebrate the talent. Should we believe the yes?
Yeah, I'm not sure there yet. We knew Ole Miss was never going to happen. We knew that was never going to stay, but we didn't really know where he was going to go.
Why, by the way? Why did we know that?
It was just the feeling of the recruitment. It had been said by multiple national guys that he was not expected to end up at Ole Miss. It was nothing to Ole Miss. It was even like, I remember Gators Online Corey Bender reporting when he flipped to Ole Miss that NIL deals weren't even in place. Like that hadn't even been negotiated yet. You had like the agent didn't even know it was coming at that point too. Like there was a bunch of things where like the Ole Miss stuff just didn't fit. It was very weird. It was a very weird point in the recruitment because like Florida and Florida State were always the two main ones here, at least once he started to blow up after Syracuse, Louisville. Because at one point he tried to commit to Florida right before he committed to Florida State the first time. He tried to commit to Florida and they told him no. And then he came to Florida State a few days later and committed to Florida State then. But the feeling around Florida State and around the program inside the building was always that he wanted to be at Florida State. Was that they always thought they would end up with him. So I think there is a little bit of confidence that this may be the last one. The threat I could see is Florida. But again, for there to be that many commits, that many flips, and for programs to not back off, that shows you how talented this kid is, right? Like that's a red flag. 100% that's a red flag, and it'd be a red flag with any recruitment, no matter if the kid's a good kid, a bad kid. I do think Izayia is a good kid from talking to him a bunch. He's always been great. He's always easy to talk to, seems to come from a good family, all that kind of stuff. But just the talent is unreal. To overlook all that and all the switching and all that stuff, that means the talent has to be A1, and he is the number one linebacker in Rivals for a reason. Who
was his primary recruiter? Who was the coach?
JP. So JP did a great job here. At first it was Randy Shannon. And then he decommitted in season. When he decommitted from Florida State,
got him if that had stayed.
Yeah. I mean, when he decommitted, it made sense, right? It was from Florida State. It was when the season was going bad. He had committed earlier in the season. At the time, he was posting at Miami a bunch in Miami gloves. So like back then, that made sense. There was no surprises there. This was a surprise. I woke up like 30 minutes ago and woke up to this and and had to run to my laptop and start working. So it's a fun, big get from Florida State. I remember originally doing the video with Tom and Michael the first time when it was such a big get at that time that he wasn't in that cycle. We were still in the 2025 cycle and he was 26 guy, but we still had to do a video for it because he's just that talented and it's that big of a get.
Where is Florida State recruiting at right now? And I mean, listen, I think most people have it in their minds a little bit on the back burner because the season's about to start. And we know that Florida State had that big run and then they kind of dropped off and it got quiet again. And now you have this commit. Out of curiosity, while I have you, tell my listeners and the folks there at Warchant exactly where we're at. Where do you think Florida State's at in terms of commits and maybe future commits and just the recruiting buzz around the program? We all know it's going to be affected by wins and losses, and which is what makes it so hard to get overly excited or even overly negative from week to week because the games are going to matter.
Yeah, especially in a case when you went 2-10 last year, the games have to matter, right? There hasn't been a product to show or a good product to show these recruits in a while. I mean, it's from that big run end of June, beginning of July, it's definitely fallen off. You had Deron Parks commit, but then you've also had 2 D commitments in Amari Thomas and one yesterday in D lineman James Tank Carrington. So this is a good bring the momentum back kind of day, just because it feels like it's fallen off so much with those 2 decommits. And we actually, I'll plug it for, we were supposed to have a podcast, a new recruiting podcast coming out later today that we have to go re-record parts of now because of this. But we do talk about those decommitments. Tank Carrington signed with the new NIL agency a few weeks ago. That seems kind of fishy, right? When you decommit not far after that, what the optics look like in that. Amari Thomas, we also think was NIL based a little bit, not completely, but we get the feeling that South Carolina offered a lot more money there. And then the running backs, running backs are slow rolling right now. When you have a guy like Usman who's going to be here multiple years, you can do that. And that kind of ties up your funds in the running back room as well, right? Like you don't want to go overpay for a guy who, when you already have your Usman who's going to be your main starter. So there's a lot of that going on. But for recruiting in general, this is huge for momentum, especially going into a big visit weekend of the Alabama game. You have a lot of top guys coming on campus that weekend. Izayia Williams is expected there as well. He was still a flip target to come in, and that's supposed to be a big impression to make that weekend. But you also have Johnny Jones, a top 10 offensive tackle in the class coming from Venice. His teammate, a top edge rusher from Venice, Ashari Charles, who's committed to Miami. But that's a battle with Florida State, Miami, and Texas Tech. Again, so that's a hard one to get into NIL-wise when you have Texas Tech there. Cameron Wilson from Syracuse commit, who's expected to come for that Alabama weekend. A lot of big names, and then a lot of commitments are also expected that weekend as well. So this is a good momentum shift going into that Alabama game. And if you can capitalize from this going into that, it could be huge, and we could see another big run.
I'm always curious. Final thing, Matt. I'm always curious. So you got a game as high profile as you could possibly play against Alabama, and we all know, that everybody's waiting for bated breath for that game. But does it matter? I guess this is probably not the right way to say it, but like
if they win, does it matter if they win or lose? No,
yeah,
I don't think so.
Okay,
it's like, just show you're competitive. Right? I think that's all you need to do. I think that's the main thing for this Alabama game, right? It'd be awesome if they won. It would be huge and better for everybody if they won either way.
Of course, that seems to be a given, right?
Yeah. But I don't think, if you lose by a field goal, you lose by a touchdown, I think you're in the same spot, and it doesn't really matter, right? Like the biggest thing about bringing these recruits to this big of a game is the atmosphere. The new Doak, the sold out Doak, and it's rocking. That's why you're bringing them to that game, is like, this is what it's like here. This is how it can be. This is the special atmosphere that we have. And that's why you bring them to that game. It's not win or lose. Again, the product matters this year for recruiting more than any other, just because you're coming off 2-10. But you just need to show you're on the right track. You need to show that you're improving. You need to show that the offense has life and will score more than a touchdown or a field goal, and that the defense is competent too and can stop Alabama a couple times. Win or lose, it doesn't matter in that for a game of that magnitude, because obviously you're not really expected to win in the first place.
Our recruiting analyst, Matt Lacera, when does the new pod drop?
That's a question for Tom, but sometime today. Don't know what time, sometime this afternoon. We have to go re-record that. We literally talked about Izayia Williams for a good 10 minutes. So we have to go and re-record and say, hey, wait, whatever. That's this business.
You see down at the bottom, you can get Warchant for just $1. What are you guys waiting on? Go ahead and do that. Thanks, Matt. Talk to you later, buddy.
Thank you.
Yeah. Matt Lacera, warchant.com. Read his stuff. Follow him. Listen to the new pod.